We have lots to talk about in today's video, including the latest on the Vancouver saga between Elias Pettersson and JT Miller. According to Elliotte Friedman tonight on Saturday Headlines, the Vancouver Canucks are seriously weighing their options and have three different scenarios on the table. We'll go over those scenarios and take a look at one trade rumor that's been discussed about Pettersson possibly heading to the New York Islanders. There are other teams believed to be interested as well, and we'll get into all the latest intel on those situations. Plus, former NHL legend Mark Messier, former New York Ranger, had some key words to say about the state of the Rangers on ESPN. We'll get into the latest on the Ranger woes as they continue. Plus, we have a fine for Sam Bennett in Florida, more players on NHL waivers, and lots of other roster updates. Plus, the Maple Leafs have announced their quarter-century team. We'll discuss all that and more coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have lots to discuss here today. First up, let's go through a couple of quick items. One, we have a fine from the Department of NHL Player Safety from Florida Panthers forward Sam Bennett. He's been fined $5,000 for roughing against Pittsburgh Penguins forward Drew O'Connor. So Bennett, that's a small fine, I know, but hopefully in the next CBA they will get the fine amounts adjusted, because to be honest, I just find a lot of the fine amounts are kind of a joke considering what most of these players make. But at the end of the day, it is still considered supplemental discipline, we'll say. News from the NHL waiver wire. The New Jersey Devils have placed Nick DeSimone on waivers. We'll find out this time tomorrow if he's picked up by another NHL team or if he'll end up being returned to his NHL affiliate or AHL affiliate, in Utica. Austin Matthews returned to play tonight for the Toronto Maple Leafs against the Boston Bruins. A little bit of a surprise move. I know with him missing the last number of games and being out again, there was a lot of doubt over how long he was going to be out. It wasn't really clear. He's spoken to the media I think twice in the past week, and it didn't really get any clear-cut answers on, a return potential time or anything. It kind of felt like a lot of speak and not really any substance, to be completely honest. And now all of a sudden he's back tonight, and they're on a back-to-back as well, and he's expected to play tomorrow. So certainly a case of Matthews not really wanting to be in and out of the lineup. I know Friedman did talk about it as well on the Saturday Headline segment, the second intermission of the Leafs and Bruins game, and said that Matthews has no desire to be a part-time player, that he's hoping to make the return and show that he can play and be a regular contributor at this point. We'll see if he has any further setbacks with whatever this mystery ailment is that he's been dealing with this season, and whether or not he'll have to miss more time or not. I know there's a lot of debate about the Four Nations face-off and whether or not he should play or shouldn't play. I do know, based on comments from a lot of NHL reporters and officials, it sounds like it's quite important to the NHL for a lot of their top players to be there. They certainly want to make sure this is a well-received tournament. They want to make sure their top stars are on full display. We've even seen a little bit of a I guess we want to call it a social media playful back and forth match here between Matthews and McDavid. I'm sure this is, it seems odd because there's no other explanation than the fact that they're just trying to, hype up the Four Nation tournament and trying to create a little bit of a rivalry between some of the top countries, obviously, between Canada, US, Sweden, Finland, etc. So we'll see. Hopefully Matthews is able to continue on and play for the Leafs and not have further issues, but we'll see. Staying with Toronto, of course, we know the NHL is announcing quarter-century teams for every NHL franchise. We've gone through some of the other teams that have already been announced so far. The Maple Leafs had theirs announced today. The first team, I guess you can almost call them all-star teams. So they're essentially quarter-century all-star teams per franchise. 3 forwards, 2 defensemen, and a goalie. First team for the Leafs features a couple of current stars, including Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner, and Leafs great Matt Sundin. On the blue line, we have a combination of Morgan Rielly and Thomas Caberlet, and in between the pipes, get Eddie the Eagle Belfour. The second team All-Star features a few more players as well, including John Tavares and William Nylander, along with Phil the Thrill Kessel, Brian McCabe and Dion Phaneuf, former Leaf captain, on the back end, and Curtis Joseph, Cujo, between the pipes. So certainly some top-end talent there for the Leafs over the years. Some pretty solid-looking teams. More teams will be announced here, pretty much every day as we get through all 32 NHL franchises. The San Jose Sharks today confirmed that Jake Wallman's moving to injured reserve, while they've also activated William Eklund. The Sharks had a big win against the New Jersey Devils earlier today. The Seattle Kraken have also recalled Ben Myers in Montreal tonight for their tilt against the Colorado Avalanche, as they're on the road here, are going to be once again without Patrick Laine and David Savard. They both continue to be out of the lineup. I believe Laine was dealing with an illness, if I'm not mistaken. Now, a couple of big things that we're watching here across the NHL. The two teams that are, I think, the biggest surprises right now and have the most drama around them are the New York Rangers and the Vancouver Canucks. And we'll get into the Canucks here in just a minute, but some interesting words from former Ranger great, and of course the last team to win the Stanley Cup in the Big Apple here for the New York Rangers. Mark Messier, of course, captained that team. Messier, now an analyst that works on ESPN, also appears on other networks as well occasionally. But Messier talking about the New York Rangers. They were battling the Washington Capitals, of course, on an early matinee affair today. And a couple of the comments Messier made about the Rangers, he said he definitely doesn't see them, at this point at least this year, being a Stanley Cup contender anymore. Of course, 2 of the past 3 years, we've seen them go on deep playoff runs, getting very, very close to winning the Eastern Conference and going to the Stanley Cup final, but they never quite got all the way. But they had tons of success, and this year, suddenly everything's fallen apart. And like he said, he doesn't see them being contenders anymore. And not only that, but he said he feels like the core is fractured and that there's seems to be a lack of trust and integrity and not being on the same page between management and coaching staff. And he said when he was there, he left because he felt like they didn't want him anymore. And it was just kind of reminded him, I think, basically of a similar sort of narrative that, just wasn't that trust there anymore. So we'll see what happens. I know there was reports earlier, which I think have been proven false, that the players were upset with management. But typically, you don't really see players really worried too much about management. They have not been thrilled about how some of the moves have been made and handled, with guys like Barclay Goodrow and Jacob Trouba leaving town, and awkward circumstances almost. But at the end of the day, the players are the ones that need to get the job done, and they haven't really been able to. I know there was one report that I seen, which has been, a lot of people have said they didn't think it was true, but there was some that thought that there was maybe some issues in the Rangers room after the Igor Shesterkin contract demands, and the fact that not only was he going to become the highest paid Ranger with his new deal, but by a fair little bit, and just everything that was being discussed and rumored around his contract that upset some people. I don't know that there's anything really to that. That doesn't seem to be something that would really I don't think hold a lot of weight to me. From what we've seen from players, they typically are quite happy for their teammates to get paid as much as possible. I think for the most part, they are all pros and they all understand they have a limited shelf life. They only can play the game for so many years, so they only have so long to earn as much money as possible. And I don't think anybody will ever get mad at somebody else for getting a big payday. I mean, there might be the odd one around that feels differently, but I think generally speaking, most players would agree with that. So we'll see. Obviously, the Rangers right now are there's lots of talk about Zibanejad, and we've heard about Keandre Miller, Ryan Lindgren maybe being available, but Chris Kreider, we know his name was out there. We don't know what more is going to see. There's so much speculation about what could come next, but we don't know exactly what is going to be. There hasn't really been a lot of updated intel, just that the team is still exploring several options and that many players could find themselves on the move. And like I said, we've heard about Zibanejad. Like yesterday, we talked about a rumor about Miller out of Vancouver for Zibanejad. And of course, both players would have to waive. Similar age players, similar contracts. Both have protection in their contracts that they'd have to agree to this deal. We don't know if they would do that per se. I know that Elliot Friedman tonight did talk about the fact of JT Miller, that if he did waive to leave Vancouver, that he feels he would not want to play in another Canadian market, that he would prefer to go to an American market. And that, some people think, because we've heard other insiders, I think it was Nick Kypreos talking about this a few days ago, said that he thinks the only way JT Miller would leave Vancouver would be to go to the New York Rangers. We know the Rangers have been a team that's been heavily linked to JT Miller. That just means that they have a heavy interest in him. Doesn't mean that they're going to be able to pull it off. And it doesn't mean it's going to happen. We don't know. But on to Vancouver, where they're, of course, like I said, the main topic around the league because of all the drama between Pettersson and Miller. There was a report, and it seemed to be deleted. So I won't get into where it was posted, but the account that posted it was an account that I found to be credible in the past. So I kind of went, whoa, okay, if this is true, it's huge. But there was again a report out there that Pettersson had asked for a trade out of Vancouver, but that has since been deleted from their account. And Friedman did mention on Saturday Headlines Tonight that he has been trying to dig that up and trying to find if there's anything to it, because it was getting a little bit of attention. And he said all of his sources out of Vancouver dictate that as of right now, that none of these players, even though there's all these rumors and speculation, that there's nobody officially requested a trade out. So that appears to be so. So if you saw that, I don't think there's anything to it for right now. If there is anything more that appears to be legitimate on that, we'll certainly report on it here and discuss it. But right now, that doesn't appear to be the case. But now Friedman did say that the Canucks are seriously looking to solve the solution here, to find a solution to this matter, and that there's 3 serious scenarios on the table, and that they're weighing all 3 very seriously. Now, one of those is that they don't do anything, and that Miller and Pettersson remain Canucks. I'm not entirely convinced that that's going to happen, or that it's the best thing for them if things are as serious as we are led to believe. It kind of reminds me a lot of the situation in Winnipeg with Patrick Laine and Blake Wheeler. We know Blake Wheeler, again, similar to JT Miller, a very intense veteran player. We know that some of these veteran guys, they go about things very, very differently, and that some of the younger players just don't respond well to certain types of criticism, certain types of feedback. They have a completely different way in some cases of how they like to be handled, how they like to be dealt with. And, you know, it's just a scenario where if JT Miller is challenging Pettersson and he's being really, really hard on him, like we've heard comments from former Canuck Brad Richardson say, he even told JT years back when he was there, when Bruce Boudreau was the coach, you're going to lose this guy. He's not going to respond, and he's not responding well to your types of motivation and challenges and what you're trying to do here. I think at the end of the day, guys like Miller and Wheeler, they just want to bring out the best in them, and they want to, you know, they want everybody to play the same way type of thing. And they got to understand that some of these newer age people go about things completely different. And I think it's fair to say that Blake Wheeler's leadership played a huge role in Laine leaving town in Vancouver. So to me, this is kind of a whole scenario repeating itself in Vancouver, that unless Miller's the one that's traded, it's going to be the same sort of scenario. And the Canucks are looking at Miller trades. They're looking at Pettersson trades. And according to Friedman, the third scenario is that both are traded. So we could either see, you know, no trades. Maybe they try to figure out a way to solve this, which is probably the least likely. Number 2 is that they trade one of them, and number 3 that they trade both. Now, I think they're only going to do both, and they'd have to have some pretty awesome deals on the table, because it's hard to imagine how they become a better team in the long run. Friedman did say that they are prioritizing the center position on a return, that if they move one of these guys, they're going to be a lot weaker down the middle. They need a good center coming back in any trade that involves either of these players. A lot of fans apparently would prefer they really focus on the back end and bring in a top flight defenseman. But according to Friedman, a centerman is somebody that they would prefer to zone in on. Now, there was a lot of speculation around the New York Islanders. Islanders media reporting on the fact of, I think this is more than anything, that they feel that the Islanders should do this. I don't know that there's legit connections, that conversations are taking place. But the rumored deal involved the Canucks focusing on Brock Nelson and Noah Dobson. Now, of course, Brock Nelson's a pending unrestricted free agent. I think the only way that works is if Brock Nelson agrees to sign an extension. Now, if JT Miller was the player traded, that would kind of make more sense to me, because Miller and Nelson are more of similar age. They, you know, don't necessarily, not, I don't know if it's fair to say they play a similar style, but you got a guy in Brock Nelson who's been a 30-plus proven goal-scoring centerman, you know, into his early 30s. So, you know, you've got a more comparable, age and player profile in that sense, were, instead of a guy like Pettersson. But, Brock Nelson has been a pretty good centerman. Now, is he going to give you Elias Pettersson stuff? No, he's not. Noah Dobson would be the main piece. There was also speculation that they really like Islanders prospect Danny Nelson. So another Nelson, who currently is with Team USA at the World Juniors and having a really solid tournament. A lot of people feel Danny Nelson projects to be a middle six forward. I don't know that he's going to be a top-end player. Probably a third line possibility is where the projections kind of sit for him right now, with maybe being one of the third line player who can maybe move up on occasion, right? In case of injury or a player, struggling or something like that. So a package of Dobson, Nelson, and Nelson. Maybe even we might probably have to throw in a pick in there as well. That would be the package that the Islanders would reportedly look to try to get Pettersson for. Now, Noah Dobson is a right shot defenseman. He's a real high-end player. To me, he could be somebody who's consistently, anywhere from 60 to 80 points. I really like Dobson's game. I think it was set back to Islanders' blue line if they move him, but I can understand why any package involving a high-end player coming in, that's going to be a target going out. Now, of course, you down the middle now in Long Island, you're going to have Pettersson and Matthew Barzal if this deal indeed goes ahead. We know former Canuck captain Bo Horvat would be happy to get his old teammate back on his side. We heard his comments recently saying that he'd love for a chance to play with Pettersson again if it ever worked out. So certainly, I think in the long run, from an offensive perspective, it'd be a good injection for the Islanders. I guess one point that we've heard as well from fans is we know that a lot of people want Lou Lamoriello gone from the Islanders and new management to kind of take over. And if, really, do you want an outgoing general manager working on a blockbuster trade that could be, a major block here for your team to really take a major swing forward? Do you want them handling that on the way out? Probably not. But at this rate, we don't really know. There's been no word from ownership that, change is imminent, right? So we don't really know what's happening. We know the Islanders are low in the standings, underachieving this year. We've also heard from Frank Saravalli on this topic too, saying that he sees teams like Buffalo and Carolina being very much involved if the Canucks want to be serious about a Pettersson trade, which, like I said, they're believed to at least be seriously considering all things right now. We know Carolina was very much in the mix before he signed his long-term deal. The Canucks were exploring, trade possibilities because they weren't sure he was going to commit to a long-term deal. So clearly, it's a situation where they very well could get back into the mix there as well. So certainly lots of teams to watch. If the Canucks are serious, like Friedman's reports indicate, then, whether it's the Islanders, the Sabres, or the Hurricanes, or others. He said, Saravalli also said that look for other non-playoff teams. I wouldn't, even a team like Detroit seems interesting when it comes to something like that. I don't know what they could put together for a package, but at the end of the day, a 100-point centerman who's in his mid-20s doesn't come on the market that often. So teams are going to line up and make their offers. So let me know your thoughts on the Pettersson to the Islanders deal that's been rumored and other teams that are in the mix. What do you think is going to happen? Are they going to pull the trigger on this, or how long is this dramatic situation going to unfold for before we get resolution in Vancouver? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. We'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, of course, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with the latest news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thank you for watching. I'll catch you next time.